All right. Looks like we are recording here. Once again, thank you everybody so much for joining us today for this information session on the Eleanor Merritt Fellowship at the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art. I am joined with my colleagues here, Camilo and Jay, and I believe that they are going to kick us off on our presentation today.
Absolutely. So, hello everybody. I hope you're doing well. My name is Camilo. I'm the current Eleanor Merritt Fellow. And I'm really excited to talk about the position, talk about what past fellows have done, what I have done, and what you could do as well. So this is our team. The fellowship falls under academic affairs. Jay Boda, who is on the call right now, is the Associate Director of Academics, Innovation, and Research. Fran is Academic Affairs and Education Programs Coordinator. And hello again, my name is Camilo, and I am the Eleanor Merritt Fellow. If y'all have any questions that aren't answered during this info session, you can email academic.affairs@ringling.org. So, like I said, academic affairs, it includes fellowships. It also includes internships that we have, including student summer internships. We do research visitor, audience research, innovation. We're often tapped to create initiatives, um, innovative initiatives. And of course, we're academic as well. I'll pass it over to Jay.
All right, thanks, Camilo. Appreciate that. And hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for attending the info session today. Um, so, my portion of the info session today will be sharing a little bit about the Ringling and the fellowship. But along the way, if you have questions, please feel free to drop anything in the chat, and then we'll have time at the very end to open up and answer questions as well. So next slide, please. So the Ringling Museum, the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art, you can read the mission here, where we are essentially a legacy institution from a bequest, a gift from John and Mabel Ringling. We celebrate art, architecture, and circus, and we always try to inspire, educate, and entertain our audiences. Next slide. As far as what we're attempting to do going forward, when we're looking into the future, we're always wanting to be a place that engages our local communities all the way to the global community with art and culture. And we're always striving to be accessible and inclusive of all people. Next slide, please. I really encourage you to go to our website, ringling.org, to learn more about our collections, our programs, our events, and what we do. You can learn more about our board members, our strategic plan. Here, you get a kind of a very quick snapshot of our collections. John and Mabel Ringling established a museum of art that centered on Western art primarily, but they did collect some Asian art, but that art extends from antiquity all the way to current day of the 1920s. But then we continued on after their gift to continue to collect. So we have art up to the moment. We have art that was made in 2025 into 2026 in our collections. The top right photo you see is their home that is on our property that is called Kadazan. So that's also a venue to explore. We have a circus museum. We have a historic theater that was imported. The interior decor of the theater was imported from Oslo, Italy. So we have a performing arts program. We're also a level 2 arboretum. So we have about 2,000 examples of trees on our property. But I'd like to highlight the bottom right photo that you see. That is our community gallery. And that is a specific project that the Eleanor Merritt Fellow helps manage. And I'll let Camilo share a little bit maybe later about that. Next slide. So legacy is a really big part of what we do. And so John and Mabel's legacy was gifting their property, their home, the art museum, their collection to the state of Florida when they passed. And so these yellow boxes that you see were the seeds of that gift. The home is on the water of Sarasota Bay. The middle square is a rose garden that Mabel established in 1913. And then the bottom right yellow square that you see, that's the original Museum of Art. Everything else that you see in this photograph grew from those three seeds that John and Mabel established in the early 20th century. Everything else has come afterwards after they gave that gift. Next slide, please. So that was their legacy. That is what they left behind and the seeds that have grown out of it. I'd like to transition quickly to the benefactor, I should say, the namesake of the fellowship that we're talking about today, Eleanor Merritt. Eleanor Merritt was an artist. She was also an art educator, and she was also an arts advocate. She was also a barrier breaker. But I love this quote from Eleanor, where she talks about art carrying traditions from the past into the future. That's really, I think, a really core foundational element of what the fellowship is attempting to do. Taking a legacy gift from the Ringlings, carrying it forward, and trying to foster the next generation of cultural heritage leaders. Again, I'd like to encourage you to learn more about Eleanor. We don't have a lot of time in our session today, so please visit eleanormerritt.com. That is run by the estate of Eleanor, by her family. But you can learn a lot more about her life and her work there. Next slide, please. A little bit more about Eleanor Merritt's legacy at the Ringling. She was heavily involved in the Ringling, but her family continues to be involved in the Ringling. Eleanor is on the left here, at the top left, but her daughters and her granddaughter are on the right. So Lori and Lisa, Dr. Lisa Merritt, are with us. They visit the museum, they get involved in programming and attend events. And the bottom image that you see was an exhibition that we held in 2022 celebrating Eleanor Merritt's life and her work and her career as, again, art educator, and arts advocate. And we accessioned several pieces of her work into our collection, including archives materials, which I'll talk about here in a moment. Next slide. Another piece of Eleanor Merritt's legacy was she, as a barrier breaker especially, she was the first African-American docent or guide for our art museum in the 1980s. As an arts, she moved to the Sarasota area from the Northeast area of the United States. She moved to Florida in the 1980s. She got involved with the museum as a volunteer and started giving tours of the art museum. And then she also helped implement at that time the very first children's art making programs at the museum. We were primarily focused on adults before that. And because of Eleanor's wish to use the arts to propel the next generation, she instituted art making education programs for kids. And that continues to today. And so that's another part of that, those seeds that were planted by Eleanor that have grown and expanded since her time. Next slide, please. So the fellowship now. We named the fellowship in 2023. We developed it in 2022, but it started in 2023. We named it after Eleanor as a way to invite people who may or may not be thinking about careers in cultural heritage to explore what it's like to work in a museum environment and to invite them in to try out kind of like a hat or some clothing, try out, put on different types of career disciplines, working in an archives, working in the education department, working with our collections team members. Perhaps if they're interested, they could work in visitor services or in performance. If their skills, experience, knowledge, and interest all align, there's opportunities potentially to work with a curator if those parts and pieces all fit together. But if you don't have all of that in your background, never fear. That's again the intention of the fellowship, to invite people that are thinking about it but might not have all the requisite skills in art history or archives or library or education to come in and try on the career during the fellowship, because we provide training in these areas where you can work with professional team members to learn about what it's like to work in an archive, what it's like to work with collections team members, what it's like to work within the education department. But the ultimate goal, the ultimate hope, maybe even, is to foster the next generation of cultural heritage leaders. If you're not sure you want to stay in cultural heritage, uh, there's no requisite mandate that you must take the fellowship on the condition that you will stay in cultural heritage or in museums as your career. But that is our hope. The hope that we invite someone that may not be considering the field and they'll stay, but then also become a really relevant, important leader in the field going forward after their fellowship. So the structure of the fellowship is one where we set you up in a way to let you learn, explore, um, and get to know the Ringling, its operations, its people, its programs, what we do in the first half of the fellowship year. It's an approximation of the first half, but like that fall semester timeframe, you're just let loose to explore, and then you're also going to plan what you want to do in the back half of your fellowship year, your second half of your fellowship year, where you're going to implement either programs or projects that you're thinking about wanting to do as the fellow. In that first half, you're also kind of getting involved and taking and participating in a lot of events and programs with staffs. But then in the second half, you act more independently, and you put into practice the things that you learned in the first half of the fellowship year. But by that implementation, you're growing as you're learning, and then you're stepping into a leadership role. And Camilo will I'll give you more examples here coming up in a bit, where he's definitely stepped in as a leader in a programmatic way, where he's leading programs that he's developed and putting that all into practice today. Next slide, please. These are some of the mainstay projects at the top, some of the mainstay projects. These are the things that all fellows do as part of their fellowship. One of them is they conduct some research in the archives. The Ringling Archives has institutional records going back to the day of John and Mabel Ringling, but the archive records also have the estate materials of Eleanor Merritt. They were donated to us. They are preserved forever in our archives. And so a Merritt Fellow will delve into those archives and create a research project of their interest to do research with that. And then in that, share the fellowship in a meaningful way. They also conduct oversight of our community gallery. The community gallery is a space where we invite local nonprofit organizations to share art making projects or other types of meaningful object-based projects with our community. And the Merritt Fellow works with our community outreach coordinator to jury these kind of exhibitions, prep to prep the installation and the deinstallation of those exhibitions, and then also coordinate receptions for opening night, and or sometimes, depending on schedules, it might be a closing reception event. And then all fellows are expected to share the fellowship. In that way, we table at community events like various colleges to get the word out that the fellowship exists. Camilo organized today's info session. Camilo will also likely speak more about this, but I think even perhaps even this morning, Camilo was on the radio sharing the fellowship, but getting the word out, explaining not only about the fellowship, but talking about the Ringling and its legacy. So those are some of the mainstay things that all fellows do, but also we try to allow personalization of those projects. during that front half of the fellowship year where you're learning and exploring what the Ringling does, you're also expected to plan a set of projects that you will implement in the back half of the fellowship. And those projects can be very much tailored to your specific interests, depending on your particular interests for professional development and or academic goals. Perhaps after the fellowship, you want to go into grad school. And for graduate school experience, for your resume, for your CV, for that cover letter of experiences, you want to have some certain pieces to be in there. So you want to have experience in different areas. You can create a set of projects that are very tailored to you and your specific interests and goals. Next slide, please. So the fellowship is also very integral in the execution of our strategic plan commitments. I've highlighted in yellow the very relevant commitments, but you'll notice number 7 talks about upholding and honoring the Ringling's historic legacy. That's definitely part of what the fellowship does. But they also do all the other commitments that you see. And I think I might be wrong. I haven't read every single job description at the Ringling, but I think the Eleanor Merritt Fellowship might be the only one, the only job description that we have at the Ringling that has this kind of language that you see at the very bottom of the screen, where it talks about supporting the Ringling strategic plan. We all do implicitly, but we wrote it in very explicitly that the Eleanor Merritt Fellowship is on board as a way to support our strategic plan commitments that you see on the screen here. So their projects are very community-based and creative, innovative in ways to try to invite people into the museum, but also bringing the museum outside of the walls and making the Ringling more accessible into our community. Next slide, please. All right, transitioning quickly to past fellows. We've had 2 past fellows and a current fellow. It's a relatively new fellowship. Our first Merit Fellow, his name was Javon Brown, or is Javon Brown, I should say, and he started in 2023, in August 2023, going into August 2024. You can learn more about him at that website link that you see, javonbrown.art. But Javon was an artist. He was a visual artist. He had his bachelor's degree out of the Rhode Island School of Design. He is a textile artist. And he was really interested in sharing art opportunities for future generations. That was really what got him through the door, got the interview, and hired, was his discussions about sharing the importance of what he learned as a younger person with art and how that created opportunities for him and how he wanted to share that with other people. That was kind of a narrative arc that got him in the door at the Ringling. And he used, next slide, please. He used his fellowship. Oh, we're going to go into his projects, I guess, here in a minute. I got lost for a second, but I'll loop back to Javon's projects. Our second fellow was Dominique Godin, and she had her master's degree in museum studies from Florida State University, and she was a past Ringling intern as well. And her fellowship really built on a lot of that work to get her prepared for further graduate training to be a textile conservator. And I'll get into her projects here in a second. Next slide, please. So some past Merit Fellowship projects that you can see here from Javon. You can see him in the archives conducting research in the archives with the Merritt estate materials. Then what he did as his research project, culminating project, was to share those estate materials with Eleanor Merritt's friends and family by conducting a pop-up exhibition on site and sharing what he learned about the estate materials and sharing that work, his research work, with her friends and close family members. And then because he was a textile artist, he worked with curatorial in significant ways to learn about textiles that are in our collections. The bottom left photograph that you see is with Dr. Rhiannon Paget, our curator of Asian art, but he also worked with a contemporary curator that brought, when we had a contemporary artist um, uh, on exhibition that was a textile sculptural artist named Shanique Smith. And so he was involved heavily in those exhibitions, both in the installation, but also in some of the programming elements. And then unexpectedly, but through his own wish to learn more about what was going on at the Ringling, the bottom right photo that you see is Javon with a performing arts group that was at the Ringling, and he is dressed in all black because he was working backstage on that show. He wanted to learn more about the backstage activities of a performing arts venue, which we have, and so he got involved in that way. Next slide, please. On Dominique's projects, she, again, was very interested in textile conservation. And so a lot of her projects were getting her to earn pre-program hours for a conservation program for future conservation graduate studies. You have to have a certain amount of pre-program hours before you can apply to a conservation program. So the middle two photos that you see was one of the community public programs that Dominique put together. It was called Community Care Workshops. And she collaborated with one of our local nonprofit organizations called the Sarasota African American Cultural Coalition and hosted an off-site public program to teach local community members how to preserve textiles in their homes, how to preserve an old quilt or a wedding dress or a pair of gloves or a handkerchief or textile elements like that. She shared best practices on how to preserve your own family's cultural heritage. And so that was one of the more meaningful projects I thought that she did. On the left, she also got us started on a short documentary film about Eleanor Merritt. That was her archives research. And with that, she also did a series of oral history interviews with people that knew Eleanor, but also some scholars that knew of Eleanor's work. And so she put together a short film documentary in that. And then on the far right, that is a snapshot of an exhibition that we have at the Ringling Inn Circus. And that costume that you see right there is a ringmaster's costume of Jonathan Lee Iverson, who is the first African American ringmaster of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. And so another one of her projects was doing research on African Americans in the circus at Ringling Brothers. And so she put together a literature review for our curator of circus, Jennifer Lemmer Posey. So those are some of the projects. It's not in its entirety, but this is kind of to give you an idea of the variety of the projects that Ringling Merit Fellows do while they're here during the year. And I think the next slide is Camilo's to take over. So real quick, I'll just say before I hand it over to Camilo, my apologies, Camilo, is I should say, we try to also do something like a handshake where the outgoing and the incoming fellows meet one another and overlap by a week or two, if this is possible. It's not always possible because of schedules, might not always align, but if it's possible, we try to get fellows, the outgoing and the incoming fellows to mind meld, so to speak, or at least say hello to one another and pass on knowledge, make those introductions, not only on the campus, but out in the community, meet the Merritt family together, and as much as possible, try to create that smooth transition from one fellow to the next. All right, next slide. Now it's time to pass it back over to Camilo. Take it on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jay. Yes, hello. I am the third fellow. I have worked really hard through my projects, through my initiatives, through my research to uphold that legacy that we've been talking about, Eleanor Merritt's legacy, of being an artist, an educator, and an advocate. And so I come from a creative background. Fran, if we could go to the next slide. This is kind of my path to the fellowship. You'll see that I don't have an art background. I never worked in museums before, but I was really interested in becoming a cultural heritage leader and working in this field. So I received my bachelor's in English from Vanderbilt. I took a year to work with AmeriCorps. I did community service projects across the whole U.S. South. I was an intern and then invited to be the poet in residence at Hillsborough Community College Art Galleries. So you'll kind of see that interdisciplinary mix of, visual art and poetry and writing and what I do. And then finally, I graduated last year with my master's in fine arts in creative writing from the University of South Florida. So all of this I bring to the table, and it has really been such an adventure to learn and open so many doors that I did not know existed. There's a lot of careers like in the cultural heritage field that I didn't think about, like preparation. The people who actually put together the exhibition, who have the technical knowledge, and what else? Registration. The people that collect the information and keep us updated about our collections. And so it has just been really cool. Fran, if we could move to the next slide. These are some of the projects that I've done. As you can see, they're not the same as Dominique and Javon's. I have the opportunity to personalize some of these projects. So the first thing that I've been working on, I've been digitizing Eleanor Merritt's early educational materials. You can see me doing that at the bottom left photo. I She had lesson plan books that are just gorgeous. She had a lot of doodles in there and notes and some just incredible stuff that I want to preserve, that we want to share, and uphold that legacy in that way. So I've been digitizing that. We'll make it available on our website, DigiKnoll, hopefully by the summer. Another thing that I've done, I work a lot with students. As Jay said, we table at different universities, career fairs. I have just organized a collegiate student art showcase at Ringling Underground, which is one of our events that happens after hours. Three rock bands, food trucks, mocktails. It's a good time. So this is one event that existed, and I jumped on and added a project to that. And like Jay said, I co-manage the Ringling Community Gallery, which is a space for it's a free gallery for nonprofit orgs, local community organizations, student groups. Um, and finally, I collaborate with a lot of local organizations, such as Fab Arts and Sarasota African American Cultural Coalition. Some of these align with different celebrations, for example. So I went out and I talked to community members, including SAC uh, like people. And together we're going to do an interdisciplinary workshop to celebrate Juneteenth this summer. And so that's just one example of how I reach out to different orgs, how I am able to connect with our community. This position is very community centered, very community oriented. Um, that said, my interest was working in the education department. So a lot of what I do has to do with art education, and upholding that. But like I said, I don't come from an art background necessarily. So if you just have a cultural heritage background, like Jay said, don't count yourself out. This is a position to explore, to learn, to grow, and I've just my leadership skills alone has just been tremendous opportunity. Like Jay said, I was just on the radio, sharing about the fellowship, sharing about my own creative practice, and how I merge those to be successful in this position. So I hope that covers a good amount. Jay, I'm gonna pass it back over to you.
All right, Camilo, I think you're actually passing it over to me. I'll go ahead and round us out. Thank you so much, Camilo, for talking a bit about your projects, and Jay for talking a bit about, how the Ringling operates and what this fellowship is all about. I'm going to close us out here by going into that application and hiring process. As I know you all are eager, that's why you're here at this presentation today to hopefully apply for this position. So I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about what that looks like and what that process looks like. Here on this slide, and just for your awareness, everything will be on our website. We'll go ahead and drop that link in the chat at the end of this session, but everything's on the website, so no need to feel like you have to write everything down right now. This is just kind of a review for you all. But we do have the link here to apply for this fellowship as well as through this QR code. And we're going to go into our qualifications for this position essentially. The minimum qualifications for this position, we are looking for any recent post-undergraduate and postgraduate students. So if you are looking towards graduation or if you have recently graduated from your institution, we'd love to see you apply for this position. As Camilo and Jay were saying, we're looking for any major, and we'll get into a little bit more about um, what that may look like based on your experience and preferred majors we may have below. For this position, we're looking for applicants with a year or more of experience with arts and cultural heritage. So, as Camilo and Jay were saying, this can be extremely varied. You can have a varied career, you can have a varied educational experience that can bring you into this position. It doesn't necessarily have to look like exactly what our past fellows have completed, but we would really like to work with people who have an interest in the arts and cultural heritage in whatever form that looks like for you. For this position, we are also looking for candidates with a driver's license or the ability to obtain one before your start date, just to make sure, as Camilo said, there's a lot of community-oriented events that take place through Sarasota County and beyond, and we want to make sure you can reasonably attend those events. For our preferred qualifications for the Eleanor Merritt Fellowship, we are looking for, once again, those candidates with a degree in cultural heritage, art, art history, or other arts-related fields. And once again, that can look different based on your experience. We do encourage you all to, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but within your resume, your CV, and your cover letter to really tell us why your experiences are applicable to this position. So it doesn't have to necessarily align directly with the museum fields, like Jay was saying, but anything arts related, history related, archives, anything within those kind of worlds, or even if you're an artist, those would all apply. And we're looking for any applicants that can tell us how your past experiences are relevant to this current position. Moving forward, we are looking for applicants who have experience leading projects from start to finish. So if you're in this position or if you're in this session right now, you're probably through your undergraduate or graduate career. You probably most certainly have experience leading positions and leading projects from start to finish. And we'd love to see those examples in your resume and cover letter because we know you probably have them, and we'd love to hear about how you've handled those experiences and how you would apply those to the fellowship moving forward. Other things, as Camila was talking about within the Academic Affairs Department and within the Ringling as a whole, we're really looking for innovators for this position. So any creative and tech skills that you have, including but not limited to working with Adobe products, data analytics, AI, any kind of skill that sets you apart or any unique skill that you've acquired, we'd love to hear about and make sure to put that in your resume and application as you move forward. Once again, if you've gone through any kind of undergraduate or graduate career, you probably have experience writing and proofreading. Of course, in the museum administration side, there's plenty of writing and proofreading every day to do. Make sure to include that within your qualifications and let us know that you have experience within that. We want to see quality candidates who can perform with minimal to moderate supervision. So we'd love to see experiences that you can work both within a team and an independent way to ensure that you complete your projects. And any previous experience in community engagement or outreach is certainly a preferred qualification. So as Camila was saying, community engagement is a large part of this fellowship. And as Jay was explaining, it's a large part of the legacy of Eleanor Merritt that we are continuing to uphold. So any experience in community engagement or outreach that you have, we will definitely want to hear about within your application and hopefully your interview. Of course, public speaking as well. If you've presented any projects in your undergraduate or graduate degrees or any public speaking outside of the educational scenarios, we'd very much like to hear about. I also see some questions popping in, and we will absolutely take care of those at the end as well. For this application process, once again, those application materials are going to be listed out on our website, so you can always go back to our website to review exactly what you need, and you have a bit of time to complete your application. So I may recommend just taking all the time you need to submit a solid application that you feel good about. But for those application materials, we are looking for a relevant resume or CV that shows your skills and experiences supporting the fellowship and your interests and goals. So I think we really wanted to highlight that word relevant because I'm sure all of us have a resume on file showcasing our experiences and our education and our work experiences, but we'd really recommend tailoring that to this specific position. So moving forward, this is kind of advice for any job that you're applying for. Um, is really making your resume or CV tailored. That may include changing the subheadings of your resume to highlight, your different skills or experience. So for this, you may want to highlight your arts and cultural skills, your nonprofit skills, communication, community-oriented skills. You may want to just pull those out, make sure that those are at the top so we can see them nice and clearly. Same thing for your cover letter. For this position, we are looking for a relevant cover letter explaining why and how the fellowship supports your goals during and after the fellowship. So, as Camilo was saying, he's gotten a real chance to flex his leadership skills and learn new skills as he's been here. Um, and we'd love to hear about why you want this position now and what you hope to take out of it once you leave the Ringling. So, this fellowship is a 9 to 12 month appointment. How would you see yourself leaving this fellowship? What skills would you like to gain to continue to contribute to the cultural and heritage fields? So, envision yourself post fellowship. How would you take your experiences from this fellowship and use them after that? That's something we'd very much like to hear. Within this application, we're also looking for a writing sample demonstrating your critical thinking about any topic. This is max 1,000 words, and that may seem like kind of a loose topic, but I think we keep it unspecified so that you can submit what you think is your best writing sample for this position. So this could be a former term paper, it could be a former research paper from your undergraduate or graduate degrees. It could be something you've had published, essentially something that demonstrates your critical thinking, max 1,000 words, that you think would be relevant to this position is what we're looking for. Other things we're looking for, a copy of your unofficial transcripts, and your official transcripts will be required if you're offered the fellowship, so that's something we'll move on to together if we get to that point. We're also looking for 3 professional references for this position. These will be included in your FSU application portal and on your reference page in your resume. So we're actually looking for your references in 2 different places on your application. Once again, in your FSU application, once you're filling it out, you'll see an option for where you can add your references. We're also going to ask for those on a separate page in your resume, but I believe that this is all included in the website, so no need to write it all down right now. As you're applying for any position, I know you're all young professionals here, looking for your next career opportunity, and we are, as the people who read both of our summer internship applications, our fellowship applications, we encourage you to follow the application instruction, and this includes to all applications, whether this position or an additional position you apply for at the Ringling or any position you apply to. It's unfortunate how many people we see not including just one part of their resume, maybe just those unofficial transcripts or just those references, but you've got some time here. Don't feel like you need to rush into it. Take your time, make sure you have all of your necessary parts for your application so we can really consider you for a serious contender for this fellowship. And just to close out with our recruitment timeline here, like I was saying, applications close on April 13th, 2026. So today is about 2 months away from that deadline. We have some time to complete your application. Take your time, read through the application materials on our website. Once again, reach out to us if you have questions while completing your application, and then submit those applications by April 13th, 2026. Candidates will be notified whether they are selected for an interview no later than May 8th, 2026. So I know it's nice to have that kind of date in mind of I put my application in, when will I hear back? Candidates will hear back no later than May 8th, and an offer will be made to the top candidate no later than June 26th, 2026. Your employment paperwork must be completed no later than July 17th, 2026. So if you are offered a role for this position, because we are governed by Florida State University, we adhere to their hiring policies, which include completing a level 2 background check, which must be completed within the United States, and uploading images of your signed Social Security card, driver's license, and DMV verification of a driver's license into the employee onboarding portal. So just some more application requirements per FSU that you'll need to complete to be contingent upon an offer.
Hey, Frank,
The new fellow,
can I
yeah, of
just
course,
jump in
Jay.
real quick? On that level 2 background check, this is somewhat of a hiccup sometimes because we'll be going through um, the process of hiring in the summer, which is oftentimes aligned with people's vacations. I just want to underline that the background check has to be done physically within the United States. If you're traveling overseas, we're not able to conduct that background check, and that would preclude hiring. So I just want to make that point particularly clear. But sorry to interrupt you, Frank. Go ahead.
No, that's a great point. We deal with it as well for our summer interns of maybe you're going on a vacation out of the country and you get offered this, an application, or you get offered the position that you applied for. That's wonderful, but we need to ensure that you complete that background check in the United States is essentially what Jay's saying prior to your onboarding. Just to close out here, the new fellow is set to begin in July 2026 so that we can have that 2-week fellowship handshake with Camilo. So whoever is offered this position, we'd really like for you to meet Camilo, speak with him, get to know him, get settled here at the Ringling, and have kind of that colleague to help pass you into the next fellowship, and feel confident about starting. The fellowship is a 9 to 12 month year for this appointee. So this is dependent on the fellow's plans, goals, and needs. So just wanted to highlight that the fellowship can be 9 up to 12 months for this position. All right. Once again, if you all have questions, I'm sure they may come up, after this session. You're welcome to email us anytime at academic.affairs@ringling.org. And this email does go to all of us. So Jay, myself, and Camilo, we're all happy to answer your questions. And feel free to email us anytime. But we do encourage you all to apply by April 13th. That link is right here, and we can drop it in the chat in just a moment. And as well, there will be that QR code here. But I'll go ahead and stop sharing so we can get into some questions. I did see one at the moment, which is asking, does the fellowship come with housing, or will we have to find housing on our own? You will need to secure housing on your own for this position.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, we do our best to make the fellowship salary um, competitive as a living wage commensurate with paid staff, because the fellowship is paid staff. It's a full-time 40-hour a week staff member. And while, in terms of duties, it's entry level as far as a museum employee goes, I think the pay is equitable uh, for the area. So there isn't a separate housing stipend or something like that. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Camilo, both. Does anyone else have any questions that they want to unmute or drop in the chat?
I went ahead and put our shared email in there, academic.affairs@ringling.org, as well as a link to our internships and fellowship page online. Um, Definitely just a good resource to review anytime if you're interested in this position.
Good. Yeah, go ahead. I see you, Emma. Go ahead, unmute if you like.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering if I'm not sure if it was listed online, but did you have a approximate range of the payment
Sure. Yeah,
stipend?
yeah. We post the salary on the website, but it's uh, it because we were aligned with Florida State University, we follow their HR policy, so it's always commensurate with education and experience. So, but I believe the starting level is $50,000 a year, but it could go over that depending on education and or particular experience. Anything else from questions, thoughts, anything like that?
Real quick, I can add to that question about housing and about the pay. I live in St. Petersburg, so there's opportunities to um, like the Tampa Bay area is very well connected. And so there are a lot of housing opportunities in nearby neighborhoods such as Bradenton and different areas there. So don't feel limited to, because I know Sarasota costs, housing costs can be high when you're first researching, but there are opportunities if necessary.
Yeah, that's a great point, Camilo. The selected candidate, depending if they have questions about the area or not, we can extend suggestions. We are not connected in any way with any um, apartment complexes or areas or whatever, but we know where past fellows have lived and our interns as well, especially our FSU interns that come for a year. We are aware of where they kind of gravitates towards, and we can provide suggestions if that's something that people are interested in. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second, Camilo, and I don't think we discussed this previously, but I wrote a note down, and we might add a slide or something in the future about pro tips if you have any, as far as like what would you how do you have any recommendations or pro tips for people that are applying to the fellowship? Fran gave I thought some really solid suggestions on the professional level as far as just a kind of like general advice on applying, but do you have any specific guidance as the successful candidate? What got you in the door, or what do you think led to your success as a fellow?
Yeah, sure. And some of this advice I'm learning now as I'm applying to my next step, my next fellowship, my next position. Um, this is a tip that I didn't really consider until recently, but when you're writing your cover letter, um, be careful not to repeat too much from your resume, because we will be reviewing both the cover letter and the resume. So don't feel like you have to put all of your hello, my name is. But yeah, just have a relevant cover letter. I would say really highlight your experiences working with different communities. I would say that's a really big part of our strategic plan commitments, which is to invite our varied communities that we serve, and better represent who we serve. And so, what else? Some pro tips. Be very open. Be curious, I would say. Curiosity, I think, is one of the things that got me into this position. I'm somebody who questions how things are done and looks at innovative ways to approach problem solving. And so, if you are able to highlight that, your ability to problem solve, your ability to work with a team, work independently. A lot of the projects that I do, yeah, it varies. Sometimes I'm working by myself. And sometimes I'm working with the education department, for example. So be open, be curious, be relevant. And I think that's all the tips I have so far.
How about you, Fran, from the last couple of fellowship years? Does anything spring to mind for you as far as like what makes a really successful uh, application jump out and uh, bring somebody's application higher on the stack for review?
I really like what Camila was saying about curiosity. Honestly, I think curiosity will lead you where you need to go. And with that curiosity, if you're applying for this fellowship, you're probably a curious person by nature. Let that lead you down the pipeline of what the Ringling is. We have a lot to offer, and I would recommend you kind of really do your research on our website to make sure that this position aligns with what you are interested in, what you want to research, and what you want to participate in. Because all of that knowledge that you learn about the Ringling will help you in your interview in this position, and will help you to understand what we are offering currently and how you can see yourself applying your skills in this position. So do your research is what I would say. But have fun doing it, right? Like let it naturally carry you where you'd like to go.
Yeah, and I think I'm the person that highlighted that word relevant. You heard Camilo, you heard Fran say that relevant. We really want to see you and how you see yourself as a fellow and how you want to use the fellowship as a springboard or something that propels you into your wherever you want to go in your future. So give us some concrete or at least some sort of vision of what you're wanting to do with this fellowship, not just a job, but this particular position. How will it support you and your goals going forward? Kind of be specific. That would be kind of my pro tip in that, is being as kind of as specific, as concrete, as visionary as you can try to be, that aligns your own goals with what the Ringling is doing and how the fellowship can connect all that together for you, so that you can be the most successful version of yourself at the Ringling, but then onwards. That's really kind of like the overarching vision of what we're trying to do with this fellowship. Last call for any questions from anybody. Go ahead, Emma. Yes.
Thank you. I just had a question with all of the specificities and aligning yourself. Do you recommend doing that more so in the cover letter or also in that writing sample?
The I would say either way. The cover letter, I think, is a really great opportunity to talk about yourself in a way that is that vision. But if you're critical, if your writing sample does that as well in whatever form, or if it could be prose, your writing sample could be purely creative, it could be completely academic, it could be a combination of the two if you want. Um, but I think, Camilo, I think you had mentioned, like, don't repeat what is in your resume in your cover letter. That I think is a great piece of advice, and that your resume is really skills based, and that your cover letter is kind of a way of saying my skills can do these things at the Ringling to support the goals that I have going forward after I finish my fellowship. I think that's a great place for your cover letter conversation. But if your writing sample is appropriate, that kind of demonstrates, it might, if it's whatever form it takes, is also kind of giving us those kind of concrete details of you applying skills in a way that's relevant to your fellowship goals, but then also your um, future career goals. It could be like, I've done this kind of research. I would like to build on this. Like, it's a demonstration of your research. It could be your writing sample, for example. It's a demonstration of your research skills. And we have relevant collections that you would want to build your research, use our collections to build on that research. That writing sample would be a completely appropriate thing to submit, that shows that connection between the Ringling, your fellowship, and your onward goals. Does that make sense, hopefully? And Camila, were you going to jump in?
Yeah, if I could jump in, just to give you an example of what a writing sample could look like, I took the approach of both creative and academic. I submitted the introduction that I wrote to my thesis for my MFA. So my thesis was a poetry collection, and I wrote a critical analysis of the work that I was doing within the poetry collection. The research I really engaged critically. So that I would say is important. But it doesn't have to look like any specific thing. So just keep that in mind. Like mine was the introduction to my thesis. Yours might be a paper that you've written before that demonstrates your critical thinking. And yeah, if that kind of answers that.
Any further questions? All right. Academic.affairs@ringling.org is the emails to send anything that might spring to mind after our session today. I want to say thank you to my colleagues Fran and to Camilo for joining us for the information session. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody that attended. Uh, for your information also, this is recorded and we will be posting the recording of this to our website later in February. We have another info session next Tuesday evening. Is that correct? And so after that info session, we'll be posting recording on our website, so you can go back to refer to any of the information later if if your notes are fuzzy and you're like, what did they say? And you want to look at the recording, it'll be available later this month on our website. But again, thank you for attending today's info session. We appreciate it, and we hope you'll apply to the Eleanor Merritt Fellowship before April 13th. So thank you so much, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.